Hello class, this is Professor Tweed here, and what we're going to do today is we're going to start modeling a house in SketchUp, and we're going to use base documentation from AutoCAD, which is not the only way to go about modeling in SketchUp. There are other ways that you might approach it. Designing from scratch in SketchUp could be a good place to start a model, but a lot of times if you have very specific work that you've done in AutoCAD and you want a finalized model to match, I'm going to show you some tricks to get that done. And I think one of the key points, even though I'm using SketchUp and I already have SketchUp opened here on my screen, even though I'm using SketchUp, what I'm going to show, especially in this video, really applies to any 3D modeling software where you might be going from 2D documentation to a nice 3D model. And so again, it can really apply to many things. So here's SketchUp, it's opened. I'm going to delete this little painter woman here. Don't need that. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import my AutoCAD work. I showed you in the previous video how to prep it if need be. Basically, it's pretty easy. I don't think anyone will have a problem with this. Is you go to Import, there under File, and if it doesn't say AutoCAD here, you want to switch it to AutoCAD. That's the thing that gets some students that you do either that you have to set this to AutoCAD to see AutoCAD files. So I have to go and find my work here, so I'm going to say OK, and there we go. I'm going to bring it in, and here's this plan and the 4 elevations we saw already we've been working with in the semester. Now the visuals, the default setting here in SketchUp is sort of crazy, so I'm going to go over to my sidebar here and pull up styles. If you don't see it, scroll down till you see it, and I'm going to go to default styles. I'm going to go to fast modeling. Really, any of these will look pretty similar, but we see it just changed the background to white and sort of made my lines thinner and cleaner, which is just easier to work with. What we'll notice is if I find my layer, it should be in my sidebar as well. By the way, if styles or layers are not in this sidebar, just come up to Windows and go to Default Tray and click on whatever you want to see. So if we notice, it's brought in my AutoCAD layers, which is perfectly fine. It sort of gets in the way. My general principles, which I'll mention again when we're modeling, is I model everything on layer 0 for the most part. There's of course exceptions to every rule, but I'm doing layer 0. So I'm going to do that. And I like to use groups and components a lot. This is not sort of a theory of SketchUp, so I'm not going to go into what that is in this video, but you're going to notice I'm going to use them a lot. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to group each floor plan and each elevation as its own group. So I'm just going to draw over it, right click and say make group, and there we go, I've grouped the floor plan, and I'm going to right click over this and say make group, and this is, yeah, okay, so this will come in as different lines, and that's good. So I'm going to do that elevation and say make group. I'm going to be careful here because of that ground line sort of connecting there, but I'm just going to make sure I get just that elevation, make it a group. I'm going to do this one and make it a group, and I'm going to do this one and make it a group. Okay, now what I like to do is, although every line and every drawing in SketchUp should be on layer 0, groups can be on they may not be on a layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer right now. I'm going to call it 0 so it goes to the top when I alphabetize it, CAD. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these things, including those lines there, and I'm going to go up to Entity Info, which should be in my tray somewhere, and again, if it's not, come up to Windows Default Tray. And so all of this is on CAD layers and all these other things now, and I'm just going to say, just put it all on the 0 CAD layer. Right? And the reason why I did that is because this is just the base for a 3D model. At some point, I won't need it anymore because I'll have my real modeling, and I can just simply toggle on and off all of that CAD work really simply, rather than dealing with all of these layers that came in from AutoCAD. All right, so the next thing I want to do is, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use my first floor plan, which, oh, interesting, the CAD block I used in it happened to be 3-dimensional. I might just double click inside this group. This is just a fridge, it's not too important. I'm just going to delete that. You can too, it's not entirely important, but we'll get it out of the way. Sorry for that distraction there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the first floor plan, and I'm going to take my elevations, and I'm going to rotate the elevations up and build them around the first floor plan to essentially create a framework or scaffolding on which to build my 3D model. So to do that, I'm first going to have to rotate all my elevations up, and this is what can trick some students, because when you select an elevation, and I'll start by selecting them all here, when you go to rotate, it's really difficult not to get the blue. And if I do the blue, it's only going to rotate on the ground. I want to rotate these up in sort of the third dimension in the z-axis. And so I can do that a number of ways. One way I can do it is by pushing my arrow on my keyboard, and I'm going to use the red. When I see red, it's going to rotate around the red line, which in this case is what I want. Although green would work to a certain degree, I just might have to do more rotations later on, and I still will have to anyway. But so I hit the right arrow to toggle it to that red protractor, and then I can click on a line work, draw out, and then rotate this up 90 degrees. You want to make sure it says 90 degrees in the corner, or type 90 degrees in, and there we go. Now I've sort of stood those elevations up. And what I'll do now is one by one I will move, and if need be, rotate them into place. So I'm going to start with this front elevation, which won't need any rotation, and I'm going to go to my move tool, and I'm going to select, say, this front corner right down here, and I'm going to click from that base point and move it over to that same corner of my house and drop it right down there. And I'm going to do this elevation here is this side elevation over here. So to start, I'm going to have to rotate that to be in the right orientation, so I'll select on it. I'll go to rotate, and of course I want a blue protractor this time to rotate it 90 degrees that way, and I'll do the same thing. I'm going to move it from the corner base point right there all the way over to here. And I'm going to do that for all 4 elevations. I'm going to do this live in the video. If you've sort of got a grasp, you can jump ahead if you want. Really, that's where the video will end, but I'm going to rotate this a full 180 degrees and move this, and choose this corner. I'll talk about in a minute the fact that these elevations jump in and out a little bit, and what we'll have to do when we get to that. But for now, this will be pretty good. And of course, then I've got the last elevation here, which will be rotated 90 degrees in this direction, and making sure you get the correct 90 degrees, because if I rotated it at 90 degrees the other way around, it would be backwards, and that wouldn't necessarily be great for me. So I'm going to put this all the way in on the inside here, although I could put it on the outside. So the interesting thing is, already just in those few minutes, what I've done with just my CAD work is really created something that is a wireframe that looks almost three-dimensional. That almost looks like this house, and this is this sort of scaffolding that'll sort of make it easy to develop a 3D model from in various ways, which will follow up in various videos. The next video specifically will be about the exterior walls. All right, and that's really important. There's going to be a lot of important tricks there that I'm going to show also. That apply to any kind of software, not just SketchUp. But the one thing you'll notice about this that I'll just mention is, like, right now it's just a perfect rectangle. I've set all these together, but the real house, if we look even in the second floor plan where it might be more clear, like this wall is in, this wall sticks out, this wall is further in, this wall is sort of in between. And so as you go and model this, you will have to move your CAD work in and out if necessary to get to the right elevation, so you can use it as scaffolding, and I'll show you that when I do the next video. But it really is sort of a quick, easy way to get a sort of mock-up of your elevation that really helps your 3D modeling. So alright, so I'm going to end this video here, and I'll pick up with exterior modeling walls.